Folks, many of you know her as, of course, one of the co-organizers of the Women's March. She also was the co-founder of Until Freedom, has been on the front lines fighting for social justice for, frankly, all her life. Spent years working for the National Action Network. She now is the author of the book, State of Emergency, How We Win in the Country We Built. Forwards by Angela Davis and Cardi B. Tamika Mallory, glad to have you on the show. Good to see you in Baytown last week.
Roland Martin. But what I want to know, I just have one question, is why am I not in the promo at the beginning of your show? I just want to know why.
Why are you not in the promo? Which promo?
There was a promo that just ran with LaToya Luckett and all these.
Oh no. Those are celebrity drops, which means I don't think you've done a drop for the show.
I'm also not a celebrity like they are. So
no, but we can include you, but you haven't done a drop.
Okay, well, I will.
See, there you go. There you go right there. See, there you go right there. So I was like, promo? Like, what you talking about, promo? All right, let's get right to it, talking about a state of emergency. I remember you were writing this, you were like, okay, this is hard as hell. You like, this is driving me crazy. Why? Why was it so hard?
Well, first of all, it was an aggressive timeline. You know, I started the book a few months after my speech in Minneapolis, which is just 1 year ago during this month. And obviously, since the book is finished and in my hand, all the printing and the editing and the proofreading, that takes time as well. So that means that the timeline that I had was really, really short. And I, remember writing you and saying, yo, this is really hard. Like, it's not easy to also sort of narrow down the information that you want to include. And every time I thought my thoughts were clear, I would have to go back. And then so many times I felt like there needs to be more. And it was actually Dr. Angela Davis, who I called one day and I said, I feel like it's not enough. I'm really suffering with anxiety around the book. And she said all first-time authors and even authors who've written multiple books have the same feeling, but you just have to put down your thoughts and put it in the world and let the world deal with it. And that just sort of freed me from the feeling that I was having. It was a lot. It was very intense.
Obviously the work that you're involved in is intense as well. Before we delve into it, I got to ask you this here. And it is something that all activists have to deal with. And it's one of the hardest things when you're not getting sleep, when your diet is all over the place, when you're battling illness, when people are pulling you left and right, getting phone calls from people all around the country to come here and come here. And then you have folks who are constantly attacking and sniping and questioning your integrity, your credibility, and your character. How do you deal with that? Because it's a lot. I mean, there are moments when and I've talked to other folks, folks get down and they sit there going like, damn, I'm sitting here putting all this work in and having to deal with BS for people who look like me.
Roland, I have developed thick skin because thankfully I've been around great leaders my entire life, and I watched them be attacked and to be castigated and to have their character defamed in the same ways. And I think that the only thing we can do, in fact, I saw a tweet from Mark Lamont Hill the other day that basically said, keep doing the work. History will vindicate you. And for me, that's what I'm leaning on. And I think the other piece, because I call you and I call others and say, different things that I'm feeling, and we talk through what is the right way to approach addressing some of it, and most of it we are not addressing at all, because those individuals, for the most part, that spend so much time focusing on trying to critique and tear me down are people that I never see outside. I don't see them. I didn't see them in Baytown, Texas, for Pamela Turner. I never saw them in Louisville, Kentucky for Breonna Taylor. I've not seen them in New York for Eric Garner, Sean Bell, or many of the fights that I've been involved in. And I travel across the country supporting many families who asked me to be there. I've not seen them supporting Trayvon Martin, who I was just with his mother in Florida just this past weekend, where she held a conference for the Circle of Mothers. Sandra Bland's mother was there. So many mothers. The names go on. It's too many names. Cleola was there for her daughter, Hadaya Pendleton, who's a 16-year-old who was killed on in a park in Chicago, and President Obama honored her. Cheyenne Norman, this is a woman who I helped her to bury her 4-year-old child. I've been with these families for 25 years of my life, and in every single situation, I don't even think I've ever met any of these people, and so I have to keep focused. But I think the thing that I've been taught by so many of the great leaders who have been through these things before me is to focus on those people who are with you, and not to say that I don't listen to critique, because there have been times when you've called me to say, hey, I don't think the way in which you all are approaching certain things is the right way to go. Let's look at the strategy. But the way that it's done is in love. The way that it's done is not an attempt to gossip about me, to tear me down, or to, try to vilify me. It's done in a way that lets me feel safe. And I think we all should protect our energy and feel safe, so I focus my attention on people who want to critique from a position that allows me to grow, rather than people who are looking for attention and likes on their social media and are using the defamation of another Black person, and particularly a woman, in order to get that.
One of the things that you write about called the sacrifice of the activist. And that is something that, again, I don't believe people really understand. Just the other day, Latasha Brown posted a video of her in the hospital dealing with exhaustion, and I sent her a text and I said, "Did you and I had this conversation 5 months ago?" Because I was imploring her to get rest and knowing when to take breaks and how often to take breaks, and I said, look, you're no good on the battlefield if you're not on the battlefield, if you're laid up. But many people don't understand how often Reverend Jackson has checked himself in the hospitals for IV fluids dealing with exhaustion. Dr. King, same thing, on many occasions would get checked in the hospitals because he was battling exhaustion. And again, I don't think the average person really understands what activists go through every single day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have been very open recently in talking about how I got addicted to Xanax and other pain pills, attempting to just get some sleep. Because when laying down at night and not sleeping, and it's now 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., it was certainly a challenge, and something that began to make me depressed. It started to make me have really, really negative thoughts. I wasn't necessarily suicidal, but certainly my addiction was a form of suicide. And and I had to actually go through one drug treatment, but not only did I go to rehab, while I was there, they began to identify that PTSD was a part of what the underlying cause of how I ended up in that situation. And so I feel like your point is so true, that people don't really understand the toll that it takes on you, the days when you can't pay your bills, the times when your children need you and you're not able to be there, or just the guilt of not being there to support your family, but yet you're out there working on behalf of other families. It's a lot. And then, of course, we do have to deal with the critiques of our community, and we do have to show up and continue to prove that we are 10 toes down. You have to, there's so many things. I mean, I think about just in my own life, I have at least 5 different things going on that allows me to, keep income and to make sure that I can live the way that I want to live and not have to change my message or change who I am in order to be able to put food on the table. And so it is a very stressful thing, but I will say that I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in my life. And I do talk about, in state of emergency, my commitment to this fight and the fact that I am prepared to give my life. I don't want to foolishly do it. And we want to make sure that LaTosha Brown gets the type of rest that she deserves, because she and I were out there on the road meeting each other. This is another person who's actually outside. I met her on the road several times over the last year, working in the trenches. And I know the exhaustion that she has. And so I don't want to kill myself from not sleeping and not resting and not taking care of myself. But I certainly am committed enough that I would be willing to give my life in the drop of a dime if it meant that my people would be free. Our people.
One of the things that I think also is critically important, and to my panel, I'm going to pull y'all in with some questions in a moment. The people really also, it's hard for people to understand, is that when you are an activist, there are going to be times when you have to make decisions that other people don't quite understand. I think back to 1964, Atlantic City. The Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. They traveled to Atlantic City, and they were committed in seating a black delegation. And President Lyndon Baines Johnson sent Walter Reuther, head of the labor union, to King and said, look, I need this to end. You tell King, take the compromise. I'm pulling all of your money. And he accepted the compromise. And there were people who attacked him, and he said, I am not going, he said, to lose sight of progress by trying to get everything I absolutely want. He said, we have to build towards it. And there are a lot of people out there, and I remember very vividly, there are people who were attacking you, attacking Ben Crump, when they had the settlement for Breonna Taylor in Louisville. And you spoke on that day. I remember when they had the settlement for the George Floyd family during the trial, and folks, attacked them for it. There are people who have said, politically, whether it's with President Obama, President Biden, and others, people say, how dare you do that? Not understanding that unless you're in the room and you realize what is truly going on and how far things have gotten and how you have to achieve some progress, it's very easy to stay on the outside and say, no, you don't you get everything we want or get nothing at all. That's real easy when it was one of your family members when you didn't have a family member who was killed.
Yeah, I think that there is a balance, right? When we're looking just at what's happening in Washington right now around the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And now we hear folks, especially leading Democrats, talking about folding, if you will, or compromising on qualified immunity, something that we see to be at the heart of the bill. That is a moment when we can say, don't compromise, go back in and try, at least try. I think for us, our position in that area is let us see who the real obstacles are to getting progress and to getting what it is that we want. Don't step in the way and become the target of conversation. So that is very, very different. But when you're looking at people, and we're not talking about folks in elected office, we're talking about families, we're talking about attorneys, we're talking about people like in Breonna Taylor's situation who said, well, we will take a settlement, but we also will make sure that there are actual reforms in that settlement. And I know for sure that they've been meeting with the city and with the mayor to make sure that these these other changes within the police department become real. And it's going to take work. It's not going to happen overnight. But they didn't just take the money and not focus on making sure that they help at least in the best way possible to protect the next Breonna Taylor from, falling victim to what we see happening to her. And there were plenty of people who said, and it tells you that they were misinformed, that they would say, well, you can't get a settlement and take settlement money and still get a guilty verdict, that once you take the money before the trial is over, you're never going to get a guilty verdict or get any accountability. Well, we know that that's not true, because we see that in the case of George Floyd, it was $27 million that they received as a settlement, but they still got guilty on all charges in the trial. It's two separate things. And I think all of this speaks to the fact that in some ways, we don't always know. I know that there have been times that I've jumped out and been strong and wrong. And I was strong because I had the right to be passionate, but I was wrong because I didn't understand all of the details of what I was talking about.
I'm going to pull in my panelists for some questions, and I'm going to ask you a few more questions. Let me start with Teresa Lundy.
Yeah, thanks, Roland. Tamika, it is a pleasure to, congratulations on your book. The last time I saw you in person, you were right here in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And that was I think it was like 2 years ago for a Meek Mill rally. And you spoke on stage, and thousands of Philadelphians wanted to hear you, and they wanted to hear about the cause. So congratulations on the book, and it was an honor to do that. So my question to you is, I think, I bought the book a few days ago, so I can't wait to read it this weekend. I didn't read it, so I kind of feel bad asking a question about it, but so tell me about a little bit. I think for me, and kind of doing some of this commentary stuff, and kind of putting yourself out there and having to always explain yourself, outwardly to people, I think it's always a little bit troublesome, because I don't think people really understand, the impact of the activists, right? So I think. And I'm hoping that it says a part of it in your book about the activism in different ways, because for me personally, I do it in public relations and communications. And so I think my question for you is, when you started out in activism, doing it years on end, what was that like in terms of, seeing the stories of the families, and then also understanding that you have, your own family at home to take care of. So how did you, create the balance and also, stay sane at the same time?
Yeah, so there really isn't a balance that I personally have perfected. I'm still a work in progress. I think, a piece of it is I'm traveling right now. I had my son, who's 22 years old, to fly in for a few days to be with me, and I'm, and I try in those ways of just trying to include him in my work and give him different responsibilities and ways that he and I can connect. I obviously FaceTime is the best thing that they ever created, because I can talk to my mom. I can be, still connected to my dad and my sister and my family members. And so in a lot of ways, technology has helped, but the balance is it's not exactly as it should be. And how can it be? I could be in the process today of preparing to go to a graduation, a birthday party, or just to get some rest, to kick my feet up. And something happens that requires immediate attention, and we have to just go. We have to shift. We have to shift resources. We don't always have the money, but we find it. We find it along our way, because we have so many supporters who stand with us. And you mentioned, this idea of explaining ourselves over and over again. I have to be very, very clear. I have thrown away the idea of trying to explain to certain people every day, because if I did that, I would never get a chance to do my work, because they come up with something all the time. They make little short clips of things that you say so that they can use it as a aha gotcha moment. They work really hard at trying to discredit other people who are out there doing work. So that's an actual job, and it's not my job. So I can't focus on on responding to it. But if you do see me or hear me making a statement, it is because I want to talk to those people who are with me, those people who want to be connected, and they just want to understand what's happening and what's your position on these issues so that they can, one, become warriors to go out there and speak on my behalf, to help us to continue the movement, and also to spread truthful information rather than allowing some people to try to drown out our work with false narratives.
Avis, your question, Tamika Mallory.
Hi there, Tamika. It's wonderful to see you. And once again, congratulations on your book. Well deserved for all the accolades that you're getting and will get as it continues to be rolled out. I have a question for you because, you know, I know that you're not new to this, you're true to this, as they would say, right? This is not something that is just a fly-by-night interest of yours. You've been doing this work literally all of your life. And when I think about all that you've done and all the different ways that you have fought for our community, you know, it is really unparalleled by a lot of folks. Let's just be real. However, I believe that as a Black woman, the strength of your leadership is not properly acknowledged. I believe that if it was a man who has the very same resume that you have, you would be given an even greater sort of platform and stature and just acknowledgement for the full-fledged excellent leader that you are. So my question to you is, you know, what do you see as a way that you can, as a Black woman, I know that you're going to do the work regardless, but is there any way that you think that we as a society can do a better job of really acknowledging the power of Black leadership when it comes in the frame of a powerful Black woman?
You know, when I think about, thank you so much. You know how much I love and appreciate you as a dear sister. You know, when I think about Roland, just in general, and on this show, and all the people who Roland has helped to get to where they are, and we know that. I mean, I've watched folks grow from, you know, sitting with Roland and learning. They weren't necessarily commentators at the time that he started with all of us. I mean, even me, you know, there's a growth process, and Roland has been a part of that. And I think that's one of the ways that people who are in positions of power, or people who have platforms, need to use them to uplift the voices of young women and of young people in general who are out here, who really do deserve the type of awareness to be raised around their voices and their leadership. And so I would say that's one, but I think the movement is shifting. I think this moment that we're in, we're beginning to see more women rising to the occasion. And it's really nothing that can be done about it, because at the end of the day, if we don't respect those women who are out here leading these protests, these women who are organizing on behalf of women and men, if we don't respect the voices of Black trans folks who are also organizing in a movement to protect those people who are being killed unjustly. And we know that there are some folks in our community that don't understand it. And so we are all in an education process. We're learning together, and we're learning about the power of Black women. And I think I'm glad to be a part of the generation that will make sure that the voices of Black women do not go unnoticed. And I think that's happening whether people like it or not. So they might as well just join. What do they say? If you can't beat us, just join us.
Julianne, your question.
Hey, Tamika, how you doing? It's good to see you. We go back a little ways, and I want to go back a little ways in asking my question. I know that you say you don't want to revisit the past and explain yourself, but I'm thinking about the Women's March and the challenges of intersectionality, about the ways that we as various women work together. I think that women of color often do a lot better than when we're working with the melanin deficient, if you know what I mean. So what did you take away from the Women's March, and what would you say to others who are trying to juggle intersectional issues?
So, first of all, thank you, Dr. Malvo, for standing with us during that time. You were a true warrior, and you helped us to articulate what we were feeling by writing such detailed and informative pieces that really describes the experience of Black and Brown people when they are in spaces with white women. And that's what I'm just going to call it. I'm not going to call it melanin deficient. I'm going to just say white women, because that's who we were working with. And in my book, there is a particular portion that focuses on the experience that I had at the Women's March. The story has not been fully told. The book only covers it just a little bit. I'm in the process of just starting my memoir, where I'm really going to talk more about that experience. And I think what I learned and what I took away is that, and Black women tried to warn me prior to getting involved in the Women's March. I'm still very proud of the work that we did. And if I had to make the choice again, I would go back and do it, because I know how powerful that moment was. And I know that we had a responsibility to stand in the gap of people trying to whitewash the issues around racism, sexism, fascism, and so on in this country. And we certainly were not going to allow a march to happen where the focus was Donald Trump, as if he was the beginning and end of the many years of challenges and oppression, particularly that people of color have faced. And so I'm proud of that work. But I did learn a very, very painful lesson about when Black folks and Black women specifically are in close proximity to white women on a consistent basis, how much harm can be done. We went through a lot physically, mentally, emotionally, after being in that space. It's very, very draining and taxing, because white women have a lot of work to do. And I see the work happening. I made sure that in this book, that white women, when they pick it up, that they will have an opportunity to experience our pain and to join us, to really become deep accomplices in helping us to navigate through this fight towards racial equity and justice. But there is so much work to be done with mothers and aunties and sisters within the white woman community. They have a lot of work to do to deal with the biases and the blind spots that they have that cause them to harm other individuals who they claim to be helping. It's a tough lesson to learn on your back, because certainly that's how we learned it.
Tamika, we talked earlier about what happens when you have to deal with criticism. You had to go through all of this when Samaria Rice was criticizing you and others, even though you never even went to Cleveland. You were never involved in the Tamir Rice case there. But there were folks like Breonna Taylor's mother. People were demanding that you address the issue, but there were people like Breonna Taylor's mother who came forward and said, no, hold up, wait a minute. We made clear we want Tamika involved. And talk about, again, having to go through that and having to deal with those attacks when you had nothing to even do with the Tamir Rice case.
So, I recognize the trauma, Roland, and I also understand that white supremacy is causing us to be at one another versus using all the smoke, as they say, to fight the systems that are in place to oppress our people and our communities. And so I understand that there is trauma. Anytime you lose a child and feel like people are sort of moving forward in life and your situation has not been addressed, you have not received justice, I can get why there would be pain, why there would be trauma. And I also understand that oftentimes we lash out at people who we see in visible positions and feel like they ought to do more. And to be quite honest, I've said it and I will continue to say that all of us, every single one of us fails Miss Rice and her family, because anytime a child is killed, we ought to turn this country inside out and upside down until justice is served. And I don't believe that she feels that we did that in the ways in which we should have or could have. I was younger in the movement at that time. And as you said, I'd never actually traveled to Cleveland. I've never been one to talk about the Tamir Rice case, other than, there may have been moments in my, where you're sort of calling the roles. But that's not something that I have ever done. And so I understand the frustration, but I also just ask people, because I did get the calls calls. And of course, it hurts when you hear someone who doesn't know you, who's never met you, speaking of you in such a way. And so I did, to get the calls from individuals who were like, well, what's happening? People had some impression that I must have done something or been working with her. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. And when I explained that I had not actually been in any relationship to that case and that situation, it provided a little bit of clarity about the trauma. But I encouraged everyone to speak to the families that I've actually worked with, speak to the people that for 25 years of my life I've been in the trenches with. And I can tell you 10 toes down that those families do not share the same sentiments that I am exploiting other people's families. In fact, I was invited to be with the families last weekend because of the fact that, I try to work and help and support so many of them. We just helped Ahmaud Arbery's family to launch their foundation. We're working with other families to put their foundations together and to help them build more sustainable models for their foundation. Obviously, you mentioned Breonna Taylor's mother coming out and speaking up for me, and I didn't even ask her to. I just looked up one day and she wrote something about it. I tried my best not to engage the mothers and not to ask any of them to get involved with something so painful. I didn't want that to happen. But Sabrina Fulton and others, they got out there and they began to say that they know me, and they spoke on behalf of my character and the fact that I always try to operate with integrity. And I'm going to continue to do my work. And I wish everyone peace, and whatever I can do to be helpful, I'm here.
Last question I have for you. It's very interesting. The fragility of weak ass black men. I'm looking at some of these fools in our YouTube chat, whining, complaining, and black women have always gotten credit. And I'm going, y'all clearly have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I had some fool complaining, Tamika said sexism is much more rampant than racism. And I'm going, you probably are a dude because you don't even want to acknowledge that sexism exists. And you have to deal with, and I'll go ahead and say it, you have to deal with the misogyny of other black male leaders who, let's be frank, don't like seeing this many black women in leadership positions. What do you say to that young woman out there who is volunteering, who maybe wants to follow in your footsteps and others, who is not as strong in dealing with that, in dealing with the forces of male entitlement when it comes to leadership?
Yeah. So, I do want to go back to something you said about the racism, sexism piece. I think it's really important, again, when, we sort of listen to these clips and just automatically think or the worst of, and don't necessarily understand the intentions of those who are speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I was being asked about Kamala Harris becoming president in 2024, excuse me. I was being asked if I think that that's possible. And I had already talked about racism. And of course, I talk about that all the time. And so when asked whether or not she might be able to become president, what I said was that, number one, the only way she will become president is if her record speaks for her, if she's actually done something to ensure that the Black community respects and honors the work, the actual work, that she has a heavy load on her shoulders that we expect her to live up to. And then I went on to talk about how sexism is the double whammy and how sexism can be worse than racism because of the fact that when you apply both things, you have, again, a double whammy. You have something extra, something additional on top of the fact that you're Black. So we already know that being a Black woman or a Black man is very, very difficult. It is the most challenging. It's awful sometimes when we think about the ways in which we are discriminated against in this nation and have always been. But when you add the challenge of being a Black woman, it makes it it even worse. So, you know what? Guess what? Maybe I could have said it a different way. Perhaps, the words that I use, if I was more like Dr. Malveaux, I would have had a better flow in terms of how I was getting out my point. But if you know my heart and you know my work and what I have been doing and all the men that I have stood up for and fought for so many years, the fact that that particular clip is taken so far out of context for what it is that I'm actually relaying is what I'm talking about. People who really are looking for something negative, because everyone else, because I called Mark Thompson, I called a bunch of brothers. I said, I want you to watch this and I want you to tell me what you think. Do I need to respond or not? And the reception that I received, even from some of my toughest critics, I think about my friend Tony Lindsay, who he and we debate all the time about all of these issues. And he was like, I listened to it and I was a little confused. And he said, but I went back and I really listened to what you were saying. And now I'm listening to you talk about it. And I realized the point that you were making about the double whammy, I guess, again, that we experience as Black women. And I do deal with misogyny. I deal with it from other leaders. I deal with it from those who come into my comments and call me out my name. Those who use their platforms to consistently attack and, I don't know if I've lost you.
No, you're still here. You're still here.
Good. Something popped up on the screen. Those who consistently attack and go after me, they use their pages on a daily basis to talk about me. And I deal with it. And guess what? Actually, I don't deal with it. So the question that you asked about the young girl who's coming up behind me, I would say block and move on. When you see it, block them and move on. You have to keep going. We have a responsibility to do the work. No one gets to tell us that we're not powerful, that we have to dim our light, that we can't be out here as a leader. And also, here's the thing. This is the most important point. The most important point. Perfection is not reality. No one is perfect. Tamika Mallory's not perfect. Most of the critics and the haters, they definitely are not perfect. But what you have to look at is who's actually doing the work, who's on the ground, who is out there standing in the face of white supremacy, dealing with challenging police and having a target on your back because they know your real name. As my friend Teslin Figueroa would say, she would say, hey, I don't know your real name. You're on here talking to me through a fake profile, but I'm actually out in the streets as Tamika Mallory. And so when I see the police, they know who I am. They know exactly who I am. And I have been targeted in this movement. And so I have to stay focused and keep going. Don't go back. Don't look back. It's the Harriet Tubman statement. If you hear the dogs barking, keep going. You can hear them coming after you. Just keep going. And I'm ministering to myself as I say this and as I continue to block all of them, because you know what? In the end, whatever they have to say about me, they need to find a way to do it better and outwork me.
Simple as that, y'all. The book is called State of Emergency, How We Win in the Country We Built. The forward is by Angela Davis and Cardi B. Actually, I got one last one. Tamika, I asked all authors this. What was the wow moment? When you were writing this book, the wow moment that caused you to go, oh my God, it's unbelievable. It could have been something you remembered. It could have been something that came about. Was there a wow moment for you?
Let's see. It was so many. I think, first of all, the fact that I was like, that I had all of the chapters outlined was a wow moment, because it's a real job to actually sit down and do the work. But I do think that forward between Cardi B and Angela Davis is an important part of the book. It actually gave me inspiration, because I kept writing knowing that I opened the book intentionally, drawing in every single person that I wanted to reach just by having Dr. Davis and Cardi B to be in there, to set the intention, to have Cardi basically saying to Angela Davis, am I allowed am I welcome in this movement next to you? Is there space for me? And to have Angela Davis take the time to sit and respond to Cardi, I know that that gives a point of entry for Keisha, who maybe she has 2 jobs, 2 kids, and she might be a stripper at night. It has a space for Ray Ray, who might be on a street corner today, but because of what he found in this book, he realizes that there's a place for him in the movement. I wanted it to reach the doctor, reach the lawyer, reach the bus driver. I wanted everyone to find themselves in this book. And I think that the intention that was set with the forward helps to be able to do that.
All right, then. Again, folks, State of Emergency, How We Win in the Country We Built by Tamika Mallory. Tamika, always good to see you. Get some rest, keep swinging, and tell the haters to go to hell.
Love you, Roland. You tell them for me.
You know I will. I appreciate it, Tamika. Love you, dog. Thanks a lot.